Shalom, friends. Aaron here. Another thing that was on my mind I wanted to share with you. Man, I was thinking about church. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about particular churches that I've gone to. But boy, people think that if you don't go to an organized American Christian church, that you've forsaken the fellowship. And you're not doing what the scripture says. Let me tell you about fellowship. I got a house full of people. My wife and I have a big family. We got 2 teenagers, 2 preteens. That's 4 who are, they're kind of along there in their maturity and their understanding. We're each other's best friend. My wife, Teresa, she's one of the smartest people I've ever met. One of the most intelligent. She's a critical thinker. We share our faith every day. We sit down and we read the scriptures and we pray together more than once during the day, every day. That's what we do every day. I have fellowship on a level that most people don't have fellowship every single day, but I do not go to an organized church. I stopped day before Christmas Eve to talk to a man that I see all the time driving to a job I'm working on. It's a homeless guy. To give him $20 at a time in my life where I need every penny for a financial situation that we're dealing with. But hey, $20 doesn't turn into 1,000, right? And a couple hundred doesn't turn into more than several thousands all by itself. And my needs were met that day. And I met this man, talked to him for about 45 minutes about life, talked to him about faith, talked to him about the world around us, treated him like a man. I don't see a lot of people doing that, and I'm not saying nobody does. There are people who do it, but there's not a lot of them. There's a lot of people who need that sort of thing. So I want to talk a little bit about church and why I don't go to church. Because if I'm going to tell the truth, I worried about how nice everybody looked when we went to church. We spent so much time getting ourselves ready to go to look good when we got there. To the best we could. We had to put on good airs. You say you don't do that, I don't believe you. Most of you. I think everybody does, really. Well, what's church really about? Where in the world does it say that we got to pay preachers? We got to have big buildings. There's a church that's kind of universally looked at in a place that I used to live as being a great church. And I don't really care if I offend anybody about this, but I'm talking about, anybody, 501c3, tax exempt, documents you got to sign and send off to the government. There's a problem with all of that. Now, I'm not going to get into all that stuff right now, but I'm just going to talk about churches. I'm going to talk about a church. Boy, man, they're on the news where I used to live. People talking about all the good they're doing. I happened to see it. I'm not really sure how I came across it. Their financial statement a couple years ago, and I was looking at it and thinking about just how ridiculous this stuff is, and I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to share some of it with you. I just want to talk about this. I'm just going to give you some numbers. People say, oh, that's not my church. My church isn't like that. I'm going to tell you, I went to a church that was a lot smaller than this church. I was the vice chairman of the board of a small church. 80 to 100 people. 120 people is the most we ever had show up in that church on a semi-regular basis. I served as the head trustee. I served on the board of trustees prior to being the head trustee. You're actually the legal representative for the church. I served as the vice chairman of the board next to the pastor. I served in youth ministry. I did lots of other things in that church. I was in leadership in that church for a long, long time. I helped count the tithes and the offerings. I helped set and change church policy. I was a part of that on a lot of levels. And I knew what people tithed. I knew how many people were coming. I knew all there was to know about our finances. And I can tell you that I know that I looked at a lot of things wrong. And I had a lot of people that I had a lot of respect for at that time. And looking back on it, our focus was in the wrong place, even in that little church. And the amount of money that we had to spend on the sort of things that I'm going to talk about in this big church, it's not any different. People like to think their church is different. I mean, I just don't believe that pretty much any of you have a church that's different. I'm going to talk about this church because we're talking about big numbers. And maybe some people really will be bothered by what I'm going to share. I'm just telling you that this is the way it is. The percentages don't really change, just the dollar amounts change. So the dollar amounts might seem kind of shocking, but it's the percentage is more than anything that I want to talk about. And now this is not, look, I don't have a lot of discretionary income. I've got basically none. I'm wearing a $1 t-shirt. The pants that I have, I maybe paid $10 for at the most. I usually pay less than that for them. I got a pair of slippers on. Teresa bought those for me for like 75 cents on, clearance items. I got work boots I paid a lot of money for, but I keep those things for 2 years, and I need them to be good. We spend money on things. We wait until we can, get a great deal. Cooking equipment, things that are really important. I just had to buy a new laptop. A laptop was 11 years old. Windows 7 wasn't going to be supported anymore. It was so old I couldn't put Windows 10 on it. I did not jump to any conclusions. I didn't buy any Black Friday deals. I did a bunch of research into just how much, memory I needed, how much RAM I needed, what kind of processor I should have. Did a little bit of research into what Windows 10 is really about, because really all of that stuff when they come out with new software is just taking away, some of your privacy. And what I ended up settling on was I spent a couple $100 on a 4-year-old Dell that was refurbished by Dell. And I got a $9 deal on Office 2015. And this got Windows 8. So I don't want Windows 10. So my laptop works great. It's not brand new. And it's not fancy. But I didn't pay a lot of money for it. There's a lot of money getting wasted. There's a lot of time getting wasted. There's a lot of people primping and preparing to go to church to put on airs. For what reason? It's not all about money. That's not all that I'm talking about. Our time. Money is fake. Money is nothing. But our time and our effort and our energy, those resources are wasted. So with this particular church, on this year reported, which was recently, within the last 3 years, this was a financial statement for them. They had almost $11.1 million in money that was brought in. And 80% of that was regular giving and offerings. There was a local event that they did a lot of work with, and they brought in money from that. They got 18% from that. Education and support, maybe donations or sales in the bookstore, things like that, I suppose was 2%. $11 million. You work your way down and you look and see, they show you that from their regular giving and offerings, 80% came in, almost $9 million. Then you look at the disbursements for the year. How much of that almost $11.1 million went back out the door in this fiscal year? $9.4 million almost went back out the door. And where did that money go? I was going to do the math. I didn't do it. You can do it yourself if you want to. Ministry personnel, 48%. Missions and ministry, particular ministry and missions, 16%. Administration, 3%. Worship and congregational care, and you can work down here and see what they mean by that, 7%. So you can add these numbers up. Talking about 48%, 3%, 7%. That gives you 58%. We're not talking about actually doing work to help anybody. We're talking about paying people. We're talking about administrative fees, I suppose, paying lawyers, paying for office supplies, paying for office depot to shred your documents or make copies for you, I guess. 25% to facilities, 25%. So add that 25%, 83%. Ministry support, not even sure what that means, 1%. Worship and congregational care. You might think that's ministry, but it's not ministry. Get down in here and look at what it is. Ministry personnel, 48%. They paid out $4.5 million out of $11.1 million that came in to paying ministry personnel. Salaries, insurance, benefits, and taxes. Over $4.5 million. 25% in facilities. They're counting depreciation, equipment and facility rental, repair and maintenance, mortgage, property insurance, security, and utilities. Ministry support, they say Bible studies and professional services. So they spent 1% on Bible studies. 1%. 1% of over $11 million. Worship and congregational care, that might sound like something, right? We're doing something there with worship and congregational care. That's media production. That's making their videos. Comfort and care, making sure your cushions are soft. Communications, honorariums and guests, paying the people who come to preach in your church. Music and print material. Administrative, 3%. Accounting, audit fees, banking services, office supplies, online sales fees. Then they got some missions on here, 16%. Paid less than $1.5 million to missions. Now, working on down here, they went on to talk about something that's not in here anymore. I used to be able to find it, but they've changed it. And they talked about what their 5-year plan was. And they talked about how much debt they were in. And it was something, I don't know, $10 million, $20 million, I don't know, something insane. And they had this plan that they wanted to get the congregation to go above and beyond for the next 5 years, the giving that they'd been giving, so that they could do some things with that money. And one of the things that they wanted to do was start 2 satellite churches that were actually operated by their church and under their church umbrella. And then do a couple of church plants. Churches that were going to be independent and not linked financially to their church. And then they wanted to raise an extra $5 million is what they were saying. Or 50, it was something insane. They wanted to just raise way more money above and beyond what they've been bringing in. They wanted to take their 11 million to 15 million or whatever it was. We want to get more money. We want you to be bringing in $5 million more over the next few years so that we can open up churches in a couple more buildings. They're going to have more facilities, more administrative fees, more staff, more debt. We'll also do some church planning. That might be a good deal. And if possible, pay off some of the debt. If possible, pay off some of the debt. That's church, baby. That's American church. You find that in the Gospels. I dare you. You read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you find this. I don't have a lot of money. I don't. I see somebody on the street and I got $20 in my wallet and I might need that money. But my needs are met for today. I'm led by the Spirit time and time again to give that money away. And if I have time, if I could possibly make time, stop a minute, talk to somebody, find out what they need, find out what they don't need, talk to them like a real man or woman. Talk to them about why I'm there to give. Am I forsaking the fellowship? I'm not putting on airs with anybody. I am who I am, wherever I am, whoever I'm talking to. I don't wear my faith out on my sleeve all the time, but I don't hide it either. I talk to anybody who wants to talk. I'm friendly. You ask me a question, that's going to lead you down the road to me talking about the one who created us and the one who saved us from our sin, I'm going to talk about it. I don't need this. I don't need $4.5 million getting paid to salaries. And I looked it up. How many people that were on staff at this church at the time that they put that as a financial statement? On average, these people were making like $140,000 a year. That was on average. Administrative assistants. Look, I don't know what the pastor makes. Dude might be making $500,000 a year. That's a lot of money. 25% of $11 million to facilities. And I'll tell you, I've been in the place. I know what it looks like in there. It's a lot of wasted money. It's a lot of wasted money. It's a lot of wasted time. I've talked to people who go to that church who bragged about all the different things their church was doing. And one of the first things on their lips would be, oh, we're building this new thing over here, and we're renovating this thing over there, putting in this new technology over here. I'm not forsaking the fellowship. And I'm not wasting my time. So on, friends. Until next time.